Welcome to the Irish Tech News podcast, where we will bring you some of the most interesting interviews and features from the world of tech. Visit irishtechnews.ie and check out our podcast section to explore all of our previous episodes. You can subscribe to our podcast using whatever your favourite app or service is by visiting anchor.fm/Irish-tech-news.
Hi, this is Ebony Zimines Park with Irish Tech News, and today we have Jan Volpicelli from Wired. In fact, he's the Wired editor, and he has written the 5th book in the new Small Hand Guide series, Cryptocurrency: How Digital Money Can Transform Finance. How are you today, Jan?
Hi, I'm very fine. Thank you very much for having me. I'm one of the editors. I'm not the only editor, but I'm certainly very important.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, I'm joking. Anyway, thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you for giving us your time. So I just wanted to get started with, why do you think it's important that everyone understands cryptocurrency?
Right. So when I set out to write this book, it was 2020 really, and I mostly thought it was important because I expected cryptocurrency and all the kind of related adjacent fields to also become more important over time. So I thought you need a primer because it is going to possibly have a big impact on several domains, and you're going to hear a lot about crypto. And lo and behold, actually, 1 year later, everyone is talking about crypto. You just have to check the headlines every morning and you'll see that cryptocurrency is essentially everywhere, from Elon Musk's Twitter feed to the Federal Reserve's official documents to the EU's latest sort of norms about money laundering, but also about banking regulation, and also some kind of crypto-like project called Digital Euro. So I think essentially the impact of this technology is going to be enormous. And I thought it would be good, and I think it is important for everyone to at least understand the basics.
Mm-hmm. And long term, do you believe that cryptocurrency will be as important to us as physical money and banks, given the fact that we are moving towards a more digital world?
Well, there are several answers to that specific question, because I think cryptocurrency per se, so let's say the cryptocurrency started in direct opposition, almost in protest against what we call fiat money, like state-backed money. So it was supposed to be stateless. It was supposed to be independent of any bank, of any payment company, of any central bank. So the way some cryptocurrencies, certainly the main cryptocurrencies, are minted, if you wish, is totally unrelated from any central authorities, all done by a decentralized network that is not controlled by any single party. So cryptocurrency started out as a project to replace, in a way, state-backed money.
Mm-hmm.
The question is, of course, whether that has been accomplished. Many people think it hasn't. Many people today think of cryptocurrencies mostly as investments, assets, and so not really means of exchange, not really mediums of exchange as currencies are supposed to work. Of course, in some cases, people do use cryptocurrency just to carry out transactions, to buy goods. One country, which is El Salvador, just recently decided to make Bitcoin, the most important, most possibly well-known cryptocurrency, its legal tender. So it's going to be on equal footing with the US dollar, which is the only legal tender in the state of El Salvador until now.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, possibly in some cases, crypto will be competing with fiat state-backed money. I'm not sure it will essentially overtake it. I'm not sure it will replace it completely. It might compete. It might be more convenient for certain kind of transactions, maybe for international transfers. But we have to remember that usually these kind of cryptocurrencies are very volatile. Their value can be a bit fickle. So there's always a risk when it comes to using it for economic transactions, because you might be paying, I don't know, one certain amount of cryptocurrency to buy an apple, and the moment after you have bought the apple, you discover that you essentially paid what is now worth, like, I don't know, like a sports car. So the amount of cryptocurrency you paid now is much more valuable because maybe the price just spiked.
Yeah.
So that's something a bit risky. Or vice versa, of course, it could plummet. The question, though, can also be answered by saying that a lot of the technology features pioneered by cryptocurrency designers and cryptocurrency inventors will likely be incorporated in some kind of state-backed digital money projects. So-called central bank digital currencies might actually use some elements from the cryptocurrency world, but also private payment systems such as, I don't know, Facebook DM, erstwhile called Libra, is supposed to be a kind of cryptocurrency. And if it actually flies, if the project actually works and is launched this year, supposed to be, a lot of people will suddenly have access to what is under some respects, cryptocurrency, and they might be using it. So certainly you cannot ignore crypto, because in one way or another, you are going to have to deal with it.
Yeah, 100%. And obviously, unlike banks and these official bodies, Bitcoin kind of allows you to buy and sell somewhat anonymously. Do you think it will still have the same level of interest it has now if it was to become regulated?
Yeah, well, that's an interesting question. First of all, yes, the stated objective of Bitcoin, one of the stated objectives, the others were likely, I'd say, decentralization and disintermediation, but was anonymity. Bitcoin, which is the first mainstream cryptocurrency, if you wish, the first successful cryptocurrency, it emerged from a certain kind of social circle, which was very privacy aware. And therefore anonymity was very important. I'm not sure we can say with the same confidence we would have been able to say it in 2008 or 9 that Bitcoin is still very anonymous.
Yeah,
a lot of firms and other similar companies have emerged that can actually track down and manage to track down Bitcoin transactions, and in some cases can essentially unmask who's behind a certain Bitcoin payment. Companies such as Chainalysis or Elliptic, they can actually de-anonymize more or less. That's not technically accurate, but that's essentially the effect. Bitcoin transactions. The other side of it, which you just highlighted, is that there is much more regulation, and the regulation operates at the level of the so-called on and off ramps. So most people will buy cryptocurrency, usually Bitcoin, through exchanges. So they will pay a company, which can be like Coinbase or Gemini, dollars or pounds or euros, and receive in exchange a certain amount of Bitcoins or other cryptocurrencies such as Ether. And what is going on right now is that a lot of countries are planning or are in the process of to demand these organisms, these exchanges, these wallet providers to carry out know your customer anti-money laundering regulation. So the kind of anonymity feature will fade away in relevance. People can still sort of operate on a kind of more dark side of it. They can use independent wallets. They can mint their own Bitcoins if they wish, if they have the resources, of course. They can try to use so-called over-the-counter brokers to buy cryptocurrency without going through the anti-money laundering checks they will have to undergo if they use something like Coinbase or other mainstream exchanges. So there's still a kind of possibility for people to use Bitcoin anonymously. It's just becoming much harder. What I think, though, this regulation, this kind of regulatory process will eventually sanction is the, if you wish, strengthening of the kind of narrative that wants Bitcoin to be, or cryptocurrency in general, to be more like an investment, something that high net value individuals hold as the kind of hedge or as a kind of investment in their portfolio. Because those people really do want Bitcoin to be untainted if they want to keep it in their investment portfolio. So this will likely, in a way, enhance the kind of Bitcoin as investment narrative, which is already arguably dominant.
Yeah. And do you believe other forms of cryptocurrency will be able to be as successful as Bitcoin and Ether?
Well, it depends on what you're trying to achieve, right? I'm sure that there will be some specific kinds of cryptocurrencies that address certain needs. So, for instance, there are a lot of anonymity first cryptocurrencies, like stuff like Monero or Grin, and there are others, but whose main purpose is preserving the anonymity element, using all kind of tweaks and architectures to elude even more the investigative abilities of companies such as Chainalysis or Elliptic, which can de-anonymize transactions. So I'm not sure whether they will be mainstream successful, because obviously, it's only to say the case that a lot of people value anonymity in that way, but certainly they will be successful in their own right. Other cryptocurrencies might try and capitalize on other architecture elements or design elements. For instance, they might decide to put a premium on the environmental sustainability. Bitcoin is often criticized because the process through which the Bitcoin network is maintained and new Bitcoins are created, called Bitcoin mining, is very energy intensive, and some argue wasteful and polluting. There are several points of view on that. It's probably wasteful. The polluting element, we might have a discussion about it. I think it is, but people disagree. But if a cryptocurrency which put its sustainability at its core, offering the same kind of properties of other cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin, managed to gather enough momentum and steam, it might become successful. Of course, Bitcoin maximalists will tell you that the mining process is the most secure and the safest process out there to run cryptocurrency. So any competitor or prospective competitor which were to swear off mining would ipso facto be not as good as Bitcoin. But that's another question.
Yeah, because with all the different new companies that are popping up that are new forms of cryptocurrency, don't you think that it kind of waters down the legitimacy of Bitcoin and Ether and major cryptocurrencies?
I mean, yeah, it's never great for any brand, if you wish. I'm not sure whether brand is the right word to describe Bitcoin and Ether, but it's never great when a sector gets swamped and polluted by a bunch of chances. It's not great for the sector itself. But if anything, I'm pretty agnostic about whether Bitcoin is good or bad. I don't hold any Bitcoin because I write about that. But I still think that in a way, what the various frenzies and crazes around so-called shitcoins have certainly, in a way, strengthened the hand of Bitcoin and Ether. I think that amid this kind of vast ocean of valueless tokens, I think the main ones, in a way, actually shown by comparison. So I'm not sure they were tainted in the long run. Of course, the sector got very bad vibes just because, it was invaded of chances. I'm not sure it is the case today as it was in years such as 2017, 2018. I think today there's still a lot of useless tokens being peddled, but we haven't reached the fever high of 3 or 4 years ago. It's never great, and there is a lot of scams. People should be careful, but I do not necessarily think that's going to damage Bitcoin or Ether, serious projects.
And on that topic, with the cryptocurrency ban in China, do you think that Bitcoin can or will retain its value?
Yeah, I think the most interesting development of the past few months has been not really just a Bitcoin trading ban in China, but mostly the Bitcoin mining ban in China, right? So I think something like 60% of Bitcoin in 2020 were mined in China. That meant also that essentially the network was in a way controlled by, not really because there wasn't necessarily any collusion, but it was potentially controlled by Chinese miners. Certainly Chinese miners had the lion's share of the network, which was also a bit worrying to some people because that concentration, that geographical concentration meant theoretically that those parties could collude and hijack the network and maybe change it in unsavory ways. Now that mining has been cracked down in China, that's actually, I think, taking a Bitcoiner's perspective, I think it's a good thing because there will be more decentralization. We've seen that already in April 2021, before the crackdown, a lot of miners were moving out of China into places like the US, Kazakhstan, Russia, Iran. And now, after the crackdown has been announced and implemented, the migration, the exodus is underway in full swing. There are still some miners in China, they will remain, they remain there, they keep operating there, but a lot of people are moving out. And that's in a way good because it will make the network more robust against possible government interference. And in a way, strange enough, I think, depending on where these miners move, so if they moved all to Russia or all to Kazakhstan, that's not necessarily great from an environmental perspective because these countries mostly use fossil fuel to power electricity, which in turns powers Bitcoin mining. But if they move to countries which rely heavily upon renewable, non-polluting or not as polluting energy sources, or more regulated markets where if you mine Bitcoin, you have to use renewable energy or maybe use some kind of mechanism to offset the emissions or to minimize emissions, that could be good for Bitcoin's carbon footprint, albeit not necessarily for its wastefulness, because there will still be a lot of energy being consumed and people will think that's bad per se because it essentially detracts energy users from other industrial usages. It could make, price increase in some locations. Bitcoiners will answer, of course, that they only use excess energy, which is true in some cases. It's not always true.
Yeah, because it's funny. You stated that cryptocurrency uses enough electricity in 1 year to power Sweden. So, considering the ongoing battle we face, like with fighting climate change, should this be allowed to run, quoting you because I love this, humongous amounts of energy just because?
Yeah, well, that's a great question, right? I suppose that it really depends on who you ask. People would think Bitcoin is an unalloyed good. Will say yes, that's worth it because they think the kind of benefits afforded by having this kind of decentralized possible medium of exchange, certainly, store of value, fully digital. I mean, the benefits of that are good enough to justify this wastefulness. I think there are some benefits to Bitcoin, which would be a pity to lose, but I'm not sure that if you put these things on the scales, those benefits outweigh the urgency of addressing climate change. Of course, that's not like Bitcoin proponents are advocating for the boiling of oceans and the annihilation of the climate. What they say, I mean, they would say 2 or 3 things. Let me just go through them and see where they hold water. The first thing they say is a lot of Bitcoin already uses renewable energy sources.
Yeah.
It is sort of true that usually miners use a mixture of energy sources, but we know, according to Cambridge University at least, as of 2020, only 39% of Bitcoin mining effectively uses only renewable energy. So if you look at how much Bitcoin is mined using renewable energy as opposed to one miner using some renewable energy, it's only 39%. So less than half of Bitcoin is green. The other thing they say is that they use excess energy. That's probably true in some cases. It's not always true. The third thing they say, this is what I find the most interesting, because it's a bit of a retcon of the whole kind of mining process, is that in a way, Bitcoin mining is going to be great for climate because since there will be a regulatory crackdown, it will encourage people to find new ways of using renewable sources to mine Bitcoin. So people will scramble to find cheap and green sources to mine Bitcoin because, of course, when you mine Bitcoin, you earn Bitcoin. So there's an incentive to do it. And so this is actually Bitcoin's big gift. People will be driven by like selfish incentives to find new green ways of mining more crypto. And so we should all be waiting and thanking Bitcoin for incentivizing the usage of cheap green energy. That's what people call Bitcoins or even Satoshis from the creators of Bitcoin, from the creator of Bitcoin's name. Satoshi's second gift apart from Bitcoin. I'm not sure I buy the third of those answers. The first, as I said, it's only partial. The second is also partial, but I don't know. I think, Bitcoin needs to address this topic. I wouldn't call for the outlawing of Bitcoin mining because I think there are some good usages to it, but certainly Bitcoin needs to address this, and it probably will at some point. I don't know how successful and how quickly though.
Yeah, and with having to deal with the people that use Bitcoin, I want to say criminally. As a lot of people think that it's more criminals that use Bitcoin. So do you think there needs to be more information on the positives rather than the negatives that spread to kind of get people interested in wanting to invest? Or do you think over time it will just figure itself out?
Well, first of all, as a journalist, I love all the crime stories involving Bitcoin just because they're so fun. But apart from that, I do think that there has been an emphasis, possibly an over-emphasis on criminal deeds when covering crypto, partly because there were, of course, and there still are, a lot of people who are by any definition, criminals using Bitcoin or other kinds of crypto to carry out stuff like, buying drugs or asking for ransomware payments and so forth. But if you look at the numbers, actually, it's a very small proportion. It has been going down steadily since, I think 2018. There was an analysis, but yeah, it's not by any stretch of the imagination. It's not really a majority of transactions, or even a very sizable chunk of all the Bitcoin transactions. I think already we are seeing a kind of different coverage. Not necessarily asking for it myself, but we are saying it just because, Bitcoin is becoming an investment, means crypto is being talked about by people like Musk, or Elon Musk, like Tesla's techno king, or even Facebook. People like tech executives, but also musicians are talking about it. So I think there is already being a sort of reputational makeover, even if, Bitcoin in some people's memories will be always associated with the most unsavory sides of it. I'm not sure whether it is my role to say, we should educate people so they can invest in Bitcoin, just because I'm very bad at, I have very little understanding of the kind of how investing works. Certainly, some education is of order, if anything, because people will be buying some kinds of digital assets one way or another. So, you probably need to make sure that they know what they're doing. Maybe the actual best thing to do is not buying anything. But since, I know personally people who just talking with their mates decided to put, I think £1,000, which is not a lot, still, into a little known crypto, which of course crashed. And so maybe with some more public and more readily available educational material about what are the best ways to think about crypto investment, that could have been prevented.
And when do you think cryptocurrency could become mainstream?
I think it's already mainstream, right? You don't get more mainstream than Elon Musk's on Saturday Night Live talking about Dogecoin. Yeah, that's essentially the mainstreaming. At least in terms of awareness. Usage, I do not know. What I will be keeping an eye on, even if I think there is a lot of hype about it, but I still will keep an eye on, is what a lot of people are predicting to be the kind of nexus of cryptocurrency and gaming or virtual worlds. So if some kind of cryptocurrency were to become the official currency of decentralized or centralized gaming platforms to buy in-game objects, such as, a sword in Assassin's Creed, or skin, they call it skin, a mask on Fortnite. If cryptocurrency start to play an important role in that kind of emerging virtual world space, that's certainly going to at least gain some ground among certain demographics, right? Certain age groups. So that's probably one thing I would be keeping an eye on, to see whether cryptocurrency is going even more mainstream. But again, it's very hypey right now, so it's hard to separate what a lot of people, gaming enthusiasts, are writing from what is actually going to be the path and the nexus, whether the nexus is going to ever happen.
Well, amazing. It was so great talking to you today, John. I just wanted to let everyone know that if you wanted to know more about cryptocurrency in depth, I just wanted to repeat that he wrote Cryptocurrency, How Digital Money Could Transform Finance. And this is the 5th book in the new Small Handy Guide series with Wired and Penguin. If everyone wanted to find more information about you, John, where should they go?
On Wired's website, also on Twitter, my handle is GMVolpe.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you so much for giving us your time.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the latest Irish Tech News podcast. Check back every day for the latest episode. You can follow us on Twitter @Irish_Tech News, on Facebook, facebook.com/Irish Tech News, on LinkedIn, linkedin.com/Irish-Tech-News, on Instagram, instagram.com/Irish Tech News.ie, and on TikTok, tiktok.com/@Irish Tech News.